Hello. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Why can't I hear you?
You think?
Now I can hear you. You think it's gonna be us?
Yeah, maybe just the two of us. Who knows? And Ward's note taker. I mean,
Always.
the most diligent burner ever.
Ever,
Ward's
yes.
note taker. Even more diligent than Daniela's Fathom note taker. Amazing. Let me just post on the groups. Put the link.
Where is the link for this actually shared?
It's on the website and it's on the Discord, and it will be now on the groups.
It's not on the community post Discord thread.
Oh. There's a group here. And on Telegram. There's a Telegram. And hey, Pablo. How's it going?
Hello.
I don't know. It's been such a long time and I haven't seen you for ages.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing? Hey, Ellen. Hey, Dr. Blantis. How are you?
I'm good. Sitting here with my cat, who's also attending.
Aww.
Cats are the best. Well, I mean, dogs are also the best, but dogs, I don't know.
Second best.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They're all the best.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah.
You're the best, and you're the best, and you're the best, and you're the best.
I'm doing my inventory of NCA-owned items for Daniela. Have you guys all done it?
I don't have any NCA-owned items, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the beauty of not owning anything.
Are you living in the future in this kind of like, you will not own anything, like, you'll own nothing and be happy type of
no,
Davos
more in the
thing?
Buddhist monk, more in the Buddhist monk sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, let's give it a couple of minutes, a few more, like 3 more minutes. This might be a reasonably short one. We've got a few items on the agenda around the event dates vote update and working groups and board member elections. They're fairly, and the sort of update about the coordinators working group from yesterday. Fairly light updates this week, but it's nice to have a touch point. I'll give another minute or two before I get started. Yeah, maybe start with that then. From like at 5 past. BM election. Burning Man is having an election.
And board, yeah, it's very
board election update, right?
Board
Yes.
of trustees, but
board member, right? Okay.
Sorry.
Right. Maybe I'll do a quick update about working groups before you talk about the LCTO working group.
Mm-hmm.
That would make slightly more sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool. Shall we get started? All right. So maybe, so Pablo, why don't you get started talking about the board member election update?
Sure. So last call, or maybe one before, on Discord, there's been people asking about how does the board work? How can people apply? Is there an opportunity to add more members? And I want to share the responses that we got from our lawyers on how elections work to kind of reiterate the dynamics. I also made a proposal to different people on the board, but I don't think anybody has answered that, so I don't have much to share. So I would just like to share a little bit what our lawyer said regarding new board members. So basically, right now we have a board of 8. We're allowed to have up to 13 board members. In order to add new people, we need to do it 2 years after. There's no, so 2 years after the first election. So the next election will be in January 2028. There's no possibility to do it earlier unless somebody would step down or leave their position. If there's enough, if somebody leaves their position before, then yes, this would trigger an extraordinary election. Everybody can run for the board. And one of the issues that we have in the board right now, and this is something that maybe we should propose to the General Assembly, is that currently we are having issues reaching quorum for some decisions. Quorum needs half plus 1 board members. So there's no mechanism of what happens if we, for example, had 13 members and we never reach the quorum. We could potentially be blocked like indefinitely. So I think unless somebody else wants to take ownership of this, I think I will take ownership of proposing an amendment to get out of quorum blocks. But this is where we are. Currently, there's no extraordinary election. If somebody were to step down or somebody would be removed via General Assembly, that would trigger an election. Otherwise, there's no mechanism. And I think we should consider like an amendment. Yes, Daniel?
Yeah, so clarifying, if I understood correctly, like there's no mechanism right now, but we could propose an amendment to the statutes allowing earlier elections if we wanted to. But basically, that could be an amendment that we propose. So basically, right now, unless somebody steps down, even though we want to have an election, we can't actually have an election by the statutes. It would be an invalid election, according to our lawyers. But if we were to make an amendment, we could basically make an amendment where we both adjust the quorum requirements so that we avoid getting blocked if we have 10, 12 members and we just never manage to get enough people to join the call. And at the same time, we could also make it easier to call elections earlier than the 2-year cycle.
I'm not sure. And
No?
this, Daniel, just for transparency, that is what I asked this morning. Exactly what you're saying. I asked,
we don't know yet.
Yesterday. And I said, is there any other way of doing extraordinarily? I would assume it's like you're saying, but I still don't know. Once I know, I can bring it to the next call. So that's where we are. Having said that, I think there's other ways to get involved, and I will bring some of these to the next board meeting. So hopefully in the next community call, if any of these ideas sound good to more people than me, we will kind of propose them. But currently there's other ways of having observers and just, yeah, there's a few ideas I really want to explore. So far there's just ideas of like how to have other people involved or more visibility.
Okay, cool.
That's the update.
Okay, great.
Listen, yes.
Next item on the agenda is around working groups. So we don't yet have a clear resolution about this. There's been conversations going on for a few weeks, some of which you might have seen on the governance channel and elsewhere, and in the minutes on the website. Earlier this week on Monday, if you look at the minutes of the board meeting, there was a lot of vigorous discussion about working groups. And we came to an idea that we haven't voted on yet. We wanted to rest on it, but the idea would be something like that. Basically, the working groups are there's a registry of working groups. Anybody who wants to organize a group of people to work on something can register. can register a working group with the secretary. They can then get a channel on Discord. They get a page on the website where they can publish minutes and any other resources they need to like publish more information. Did I put the agenda on community calls? I'm not sure. Can you paste it there, Pablo?
Nice, yeah.
And here maybe. The idea is that rather than trying to come up with some kind of complicated process that tries to like have the board deciding which working groups are allowed to work on what and so on, we wanted a more participatory process where anybody can create a working group, where creating a working group doesn't mean that the board has decided that you're the right people to work on this, but it just means that you've decided to work on this, and therefore you register, you have a working group, you have a channel, you've got visibility, and then each working group can go and do some work and eventually present something in community calls, or help a department make a decision, or present a proposal to the General Assembly, or present a proposal to the board. For example, there could be a working group working on the sound policy. There could be a working group working on how to stack cantina food. I don't know, like anything is, like, as long as some people want to work on something and they want to organize as a working group, they can. And then we give them a platform for like some visibility, but without making any kind of judgment as to whether they are going about it the right way or they're the right people to work on it. We have some guidance, like obviously, as an organization, we believe that transparency is a really good thing. So we suggest like engaging with the people that you're impacting and being transparent and being inclusive, making it easy for people to join a working group. And part of that is being aware that the working group exists. That's where we are. If you have opinions about this, please jump into the governance channel on Discord, ask questions, etc., or ask questions on Discord, but probably the governance channel will involve more of the people involved in this. We're hoping to pass a resolution for this on Monday next week, and then to be able to create channels and so on for working groups. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And if you have questions, you can also ask them now, but otherwise I will hand over back to Pablo to talk about the El Sitio working group, which will be one of the working groups that will assemble. Yeah. That is a great example because it's a group of people that have been working, and it shows that you don't need a working group to get work done. But people have regularly been asking, where can I find out about the new site? And I've been sending them to the Telegram and to the Discord channel, and people still like kind of aren't sure where is the group of people working on the new site. And if you've been around here for the last 6 months, oh yeah, Pablo and Ford and so on. But if you haven't, it's harder to find, and we're hopefully going to make it easier to find. So over to you, Pablo.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Any questions about the working groups? Okay. Basically, I wanted to share about the new site as a working group because I think it's a cool example. So what I wrote in the chat, a working group in my mind is a bit like a barrio. If you get together with a few people, you can make a working group. You don't need permission. And the statutes today say you need it, but we want to make it so you don't need it. And as an example, this is a group that we've been running for quite some time. Ward, originally, I think so many people have helped with this. I don't want to start naming because I'll forget someone. But basically, we want to now make it official and take it as, well, not official. We want to make it a working group and take it as an example of how does it work. So we gave it the name El Sitio because it's Els plus site. Now there's a website. So the website is elsitio.kimi.page. I will share it on Discord. But basically, all the questions are answered here. It doesn't have the really inside details because we're in negotiations with, the owners, but everything else that's public is here. So you can see the most up-to-date version of the presentation that many of you have seen. I try to show where we are, and where we are is we're in the feasibility stage. We need to lock the land. We have one of them locked, not the other one. We have submitted to the authority some dates that we would like for an event, but the authorities are away until September. So if you're wondering, is there an event happening in September? Almost for sure not. Is there an event happening in October? Maybe. We will not know until the authorities are back. So the goal of the working group from now on will be to work in the open, to share transparently, to allow anybody who wants to get involved to come and, step up, contribute to the project. There's a lot of talk about sustainability, questions about financing, offers to help. The way we see it so far, and you're welcome to come to the call, which I will announce, but the way we see it is right now we should lock in the terms. So we have a clear case of how much it would cost. We would like to organize a trial event, if possible in October. If not, we'll see. After that small event of 100 to 500 people, we would vote. And in this case, this is how a working group works, right? Until here, we didn't really need permission for anything. We will see how much the event is kind of independent or not. Until here, we're just a working group, like of whoever is there. But at this point, because we're asking NCA to purchase land, this would affect the community. So this would require a general vote from everybody. So we haven't done this before, but it would be similar to maybe the go, no go vote, or maybe like more mature as we've been learning. But this would be the gate. This is where the organization kind of takes the proposal from the working group and turns it into something actionable. And then here it starts a real project where, maybe we set up a new department, we fundraise, we purchase, and we do all this. So I've tried to list some projects, like the community survey that we did last year, the site search, these are done. I tried to show a few others that are coming, like the land agreements, finding a co-buyer, the due diligence, and species protection. So a lot of stuff. And what I'll do is, if anybody just has ideas, you can write me and I'll put it here, put it in the channel. If anybody wants to join the meeting, I would love that. And that will be every 2 weeks. So every other Wednesday at 6 p.m. Spanish time, I will do Wednesday, 26 August, 2026. You can now go to the website, add it to your calendar, join the Zoom, I will put it in the chat, and I will put it on Discord. But that's an example of a working group. And if you have similar ideas, maybe Daniel can take this back to close it. But yeah, I want to follow kind of the same processes we're proposing. So here I will never be acting as a board member. I will be acting as a kind of, I guess, coordinator. We need to formalize it.
Yeah, we're still formalizing that. There is 1 or 2 coordinators per working group. Again, we welcome input on this. It feels like having a point of contact is helpful. And it's a coordinator, not a lead. It's a point of contact. Any questions on the side? On Pablo's presentation? No? Okay. Great. Thank you, Pablo. And I'll move on to next agenda item around event dates. Actually, I'll do the coordinators, just a brief summary of the coordinators working group. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but if you go to the Nobodies.team website, you can see meeting notes under transparency, and there's a coordinators working group that happened yesterday. They are meeting to talk about they met to talk about the setup issues yesterday. Next week they'll be meeting to talk about the event time issues, and then the week after that to talk about the strike time issues. If you're curious to see what they talked about, you can check the transparency meeting notes. If you're a coordinator, you can attend those. If you're not a coordinator and you want to attend those, just get in touch with Daniela, and maybe you can. I don't know, that's up to her. But you can either way see the minutes and see what is being discussed. And with that, I'll move on to the event date votes update. And there's 2 parts to this. One is that I was hoping to be able to send the survey out today. However, life took over my life, and I just was really busy with a whole bunch of stuff, and I haven't quite gotten there. The team, so Celine and Peter and Anchor have been helping put together the Google Docs survey, but I'm basically in the final stages of figuring out how to deploy things to humans, so I can fix the survey module there, so I can actually create a survey for people on humans. I would hope to be able to send it out, that we'll be able to send it out over the next couple of days, so by the end of the weekend, so we can start collecting input from the community, like the kind of broader input of the format of like which dates do you like, which dates do you not like, and which days can you not come for, so that we know the community's preferences. And also for people who are involved in build or strike, which dates can you come for event build, which dates can you come for barrier build, which dates can you come for strike, etc. So we get a sense of the impact of different dates. We are going to pre-select the date so that not to need people to click on 50,000 things in order to vote. So for example, because there is no, like, the reason why we're looking at moving the dates is the fire risk. There's no sense in moving it later in the month of July or moving into August where the fire risk is higher. So it's probably going to be dates earlier than that, and then some dates in like September or October. So we're going to try and limit the number of days that you have to vote on, so you don't have to click so many times. But one of the points that also came up that felt like worth discussing, and there I'd really like to open for input, and this is the last agenda item as far as I know, so it makes sense to open for discussion at this point, is so like there is a kind of question about how exactly we consult the community on this. And I've heard mixed feedback. I've talked to a number of people from the community, both members and collaborators and barrier people and so on, and I've heard a mix. And the question is, how do we make the final decision about the date? Do we, like, so one option would be like, the board just makes a decision, gets input and just makes a decision. And the surveys are just input. Even the members survey, the Asociacion survey is just a survey, it's just advisory, and the board just makes the final decision. Another one would be that we get broad input for the community, and we like use that to restrict the dates that can be picked, so that the most commercially harmful, so the most viability harmful dates are not in the selection. And then we let the members, the Asociados, which are about 100 people at this point, make a binding vote that the board just has to implement. And another one would be that we just open up the full range of dates for Asociados to vote on. And all the dates that make any sense are in the vote, rather than say the top 5. And the Asociados make a binding decision and the board just has to execute. And maybe there's other options as well. So part of the concept there is that as you might have figured out, I care a lot about this community being in charge of this event. I think it's an association of members. The board is there to serve the members. And one of the ways that you learn to use the power that you have is by using it. And so when I saw, okay, there's this important decision coming about the event dates, and there's this could be an opportunity to, and there's this desire I have for the community to make decisions, to like exercise its power, its democratic power to make decisions. I thought the two fit quite well together. But some of the feedback I've received suggests that some people would prefer for the board to make a decision. Some people are happy for the members to make a decision. There's a mixture of feedback, and I've been having some individual conversations. But since there's 33 people on this call right now, plus a couple of note takers, I thought might as well ask people here on this call for your opinions, and hear you, and you can type or you can speak. Joao, you have your hand raised, so why don't we hear from you?
Yeah, well, thanks, Anne, for presenting the current state of the topic and like outlining how we're looking to move the things towards. Well, again, I feel compelled to say that I think it's great what the board has done in terms of like making things happen, the whole transition, and keeping the community informed and taking input. I think the last, I don't know if it was the last vote that we had open to the community was whether the event should happen or not. And while I think that having the vote was positive, I personally felt that the process leading up to the vote was not ideal, particularly once we got right to the vote. We heard from people that had different opinions, and I felt that maybe we could have had a more productive discussion around the opinions that people had. So I personally don't have an opinion on the specific date, but if people have opinions that like May is the greatest month, or June should be, or maybe September, I don't know if like as these people make their opinions known, I don't know if you're on Discord or somewhere else, we could have a process where people make a case for these options that are viable, and then like where the community votes or then the board takes a decision. I'm a bit ambivalent, but I do think that the discussion around the dates could be interesting and important before we actually come to a vote, because I think that in the process of presenting these cases, I think the community might lean towards one way or the other, while like I think is a takeaway from the discussion of the go no go vote for the event. I feel that like the concerns that people had that were for like no go were presented kind of last minute, and I felt that in the end a lot of people felt that, well, maybe there are valid concerns, but we didn't really have the time to discuss them. So now, while we're going to make a very impactful decision for the event for next year, I think that maybe like we should create a space for this discussion to happen before we just decide. And then the decision, whether it comes from the community or the board, I feel that the discussion around it is something we should focus on.
That's really interesting. So like I'm imagining something like that we set up a community call like this one maybe, but with the specific agenda of discussing the dates, and maybe everybody who wants to speak about, who has an opinion they want to share, gets a 5 or 10 minute, depending on how many people end up wanting to speak, slot to go and share their position on why certain dates make sense or don't make sense, and allows their voice to be heard, to be documented, to be minuted, to be heard by the board and by the community. Maybe that's that's what I'm hearing from what you suggest, and so maybe that makes
something along those lines. And maybe like before some people individually make the case for this, is that allow them, I don't know, maybe some form of discussion group or people that want to make the case for the same date can have a discussion on Discord or organize themselves however way, and then we have like different proposals that can be built around specific dates or something like that.
So for those who don't know, there is already a Discord group on this, and once the working group's framework is set up, there will be a working group specifically for event dates where people can join these kind of conversations. But okay, I'll hand over to Condor. Thank you, Joao.
Hi, I just follow up on Joao's point. I think, I think like whether the board makes a decision or the Asociados, I think it would be fine either way. But as long as people kind of feel that there's been an opportunity to discuss things in advance, and maybe if the Asociados are making a decision that they maybe could arrange a meeting and at least people be able to pitch ideas before the actual vote. One other thing I think might be good is the board probably are the people who maybe, have been deepest into a lot of the reasons, and there's different reasons why you want different dates, because you might think like, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus just on event safety? Do you want to focus on growth? Do you want to focus on different things? So maybe if the board didn't make the vote, maybe having discussion, having a board recommendation could be interesting. That you kind of like some people do in AGMs, like it's not the board's vote, but they can say like, we think this, and you're free to vote on it or not. That would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, so in the original way that I imagined the General Assembly votes going, there would be there'll be a table with the dates and stuff, and one of the columns of information would be how many board members voted to support that date. And one option would be like, we even list dates where the entire board voted that this is a bad date. Another option would be like, if not more than half the board supports a date, we don't list it at all because it's probably a bad idea to go for that date. But they could see the amount of board support on each date as part of the votes.
Yeah. One last thing I didn't throw in.
Yeah.
I think also if we have a vote with like 1 million choices, the name thing was a bit like that. It gets really diluted if there's too much choice.
Yeah.
So less choices is easier to navigate.
We did learn that lesson about ranked voting, didn't we?
Exactly. Don't want to be
Thank you so much, Condor. I'll pin Vish, your turn.
I just want to say thanks, guys, for doing all this work. I like Jared's suggestion, what Condor said. My thing is, when you send out the questionnaire to the entire community, could you put maybe, I don't know how you're doing it, but next to each date, a reason why you want that date or why you think it's good, and also why you don't want a particular date, because then at the end, that could all be summarized. You could use AI or something to summarize everyone's comments for each particular date. So that kind of would aid the discussion when the vote takes place by the association members.
So you reckon adding a kind of field next to each date, saying like,
well, it doesn't need to
maybe a comment field in general, like that allows, yeah,
something along those lines. I mean, how you do it, it doesn't really matter too much, but something that allows people to go, I really like this date because of this, and I really don't like this date because of this. So maybe 2 boxes at the end, which is your preferred date and why, and which date do you not want. And then that could be summarized with like date boxes. So passing it's easier. And that means when it comes to the actual meeting, you don't have 100 people trying to give a reason. That's summarized for everyone to see before.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah, like, yeah, let's add a box, and then we can use AI. AI is really good at summarizing those kind of things and making sure it presents all the variety of comments quite well.
Yeah, because I'm guessing some people will be holidays and stuff. In my case, it'll be clashing with Nest primarily. So
on that, like, we have somebody who, you know, so Peter K is going to try and talk to Nest, or maybe somebody else is going to try and talk to Nest, but there's also a possibility. I understand that Burning Nest wants to have a distance from elsewhere. And it could be that if we move to closer to where Burning Nest is, Burning Nest can take the nice July slot, which is nicer in the UK probably than May. Having lived in the UK for 20 years, I think I'd rather go to Burn there in July than in May. But anyway, that's not like, we need to find that out from the Nest organizers. I can't speak for them. Thank you very much, Michelle. I'll give over to Benoit.
Hey, I very much also agree that there needs to be a forum for discussion. I do remember last year there was quite a lot of heated discussion on Discord around the no-go decision. I thought that was incredibly helpful. To the original question of whether it should be board or asociados, I very much think it should be the asociados. I feel like people wanting the board to make the decision is giving up too much ownership, and then potentially puts people in a position later of saying like, I don't like this vote, this is the board, and like getting into kind of that old leadership versus everyone else thing. I feel like the asociados are the ones who, like, it's the camp leaders, it's the leads, these are the people who should be owning the decision personally. But yeah, very much agree on the discussion ahead of time, making sure there is a way for people to make a case for it. And I also like the idea in the vote itself to capture the positives and negatives.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a kind of like philosophy issue there. Like, I'm from Switzerland, and so I'm not scared of voting, but I'm also from the UK, and like for some reason there, that place has scared me off some kind of voting, which is this sort of like uninformed vote on just a headline with no information and no clarity about what exactly is the impact of what you're voting on. And I think that if we like, and this is not, I'm not sure, this is not the opinion of the board, this is my personal opinion, but I believe that if we are able to prepare good enough information, then we can have regular voting, and then the members can really be in direct charge of the key decisions of the association. And I believe that members care about making good decisions.
And I really want it to be also with the barrio leads to make sure they feel like they have this choice, because they're the ones like doing so much of the work of organizing people, getting people to come, all of that. Like, they need to feel like they own this decision.
Yeah. Anyone else want to speak? Tony says, yes, the voting process can be improved. Strongly feel it should be put to a vote. That is why we are an association, to move away from top-down decision-making and giving the community a voice. Joe, you want to speak again?
Yeah, just kind of summarizing and trying to understand where we're looking to moving towards, because the suggestion from Vish of like having the survey come with a justification that then will be summarized. If that is the next step as a kind of like brainstorm of possible dates, I think that will be a good first step, that then with the result of this survey, we end up with some candidate dates that have some pros and cons, that could lead then to a discussion on Discord where people could organize around different proposals, that then could lead to one or more calls where people make these cases and then try to get people's awareness, because I'm all for the community deciding on this, but just as long as they are informed and we have enough people involved, because we certainly, like, if we were to have a vote of like 50 people, I'd rather the people that are closer to the decision, say the board or a work group, will take this decision. But if we manage to get hundreds of votes, I think that will make more sense. As long as people are informed, then we had this opportunity to have this discussion openly and with enough time.
Thank you very much, João. I'll hand over to Ellen. So people wanted to talk.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there a cut-off date for when one can last apply to become an Asociado?
So no, I mean, there's no cut-off date in general. For this vote, I don't think the statutes say anything about you need to be a member X days before the vote. So as long as you're a member before the vote happens, then that would be enough.
How much time do you need to approve someone?
Typically it takes us a few days, because there's a kind of voting queue on humans and not everybody logs in every day. So like then you need at least 5 votes so that Ben can just click and approve them as members. And it takes a few days for everybody to log in and click yes, yes, yes. So yeah. Does that answer your questions?
It does. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'll hand over to Azuro.
Yes. I wanted to continue with the voting, people voting or board voting. I think most of the topics, people voting would be fine, but I think there are some topics which the board is better approved to vote, because first, they do have more insights, they do have more knowledge about some topics, and also sometimes it has a huge effect on the board, depending on how they vote and how much more of work it will be one or the other decision. So there could be some votes which are best done by the board, so there's not an overwhelming much of more work just because some people want to have a different date or different name or whatever, just a vegan festival or whatever. There are some things which is best done by the board, and others which are, most of them, best done by the people. Just be aware that the board can have lots of more work just because of some people feeling uncomfortable with something.
Do you believe that this event date vote should be done by the board or by the community? So that's the specific.
I think it does not give the board an extensive more work if they change the date. But I don't know, because I'm not on the board. I don't know what a different date means for the board. I have not the inside information.
I can tell you that, and everybody, that one of the main concerns that we have as a board is we don't want to move the event, obviously, somewhere where like a lot of the core community can't attend. That would be a disaster. We also don't want to move the event somewhere where suddenly it becomes unsuccessful at attracting enough people to be commercially viable. And of course, we also don't want to keep the event in a time period in the year where it's going to be cancelled because of wildfires. And like, to reiterate, in case people on this call aren't aware, the event this year should have been cancelled 3 times by law, because when a Roja Plus alert is declared by law, by an official decreto they passed in March, all permits are suspended automatically. That is like just the law. And it's because of like a lot of arguing on our side, Daniela and Jorge, and then also the mayor was on our side, and the comarca was on our side, and there are a lot of tense discussions with the government of Aragon that we managed to get them to not evacuate us every time there was a Roja Plus. But we should have been evacuated 3 times. It's just for the Aragon region, yes, but it's for the whole Aragon region, and so that applies to the old side, the new side, everywhere in the region. And so if we keep it at the same time, like the board believes that there's a more than 50% likelihood that we would get cancelled next year, because they may not be so lenient next year after strongly implying to us that we really should move the event. Over to Emmanuel.
Yeah, hi everyone. So actually what I wanted to say, you kind of summarized it now, because I was thinking like, also in terms of the questionnaire, like I think the questionnaire, it's really interesting. And I'm not against what someone suggested of making the people say why, but I have the feeling that asking the people why they want this date or not, like people will start saying, yeah, because there is this event, or because it's my cat's birthday or whatever. So it doesn't change what we actually need. That is, how many people can we get? It's like, will you be able to do build? Like, were you doing build? Will you able to be to do build if we move it this date? If we move it this date? If we move it this date? Same for the event, from the strike, and just simply get okay, which the weeks are that we get the maximum amount of people based on what they were doing. And also, like, I have to confess, I was a bit out of the entire Discord, and I just realized the entire chat of event dates, and I saw the very beautiful graphs with the chances of temperature, of rain, on everything. So I think the only, like the vote, so we need to vote, but the vote has to be based on something very data driven. That is where there is the most match between the most amount of people and the least likelihood of having too much wind or too much rain or too much heat. And the vote has to be really narrow between the match of the data-driven thing of amount of people and weather forecast. And for me, that would be the way of deciding, not everyone putting votes and so on, like deciding, saying why we want this or not. That's my feeling. Data-driven always.
To be clear, like one of the maybe terminology that can be helpful here is like the difference between a vote and a survey. We will run a survey to get input about when people can attend and so on, but that's not a vote. It's not the decision.
Yeah, I understood that. Sorry, but that I had the feeling that the vote. Sorry for coming again, but that was gonna be like a lot of not binding, but anyway.
Yeah, the survey to the large number of people would not be binding, definitely. The only vote that can be binding is the vote of the Asociados, but even the Asociados could do a non-binding vote, like an advisory vote where the board still takes the ultimate decision. Or, as I said, the board can pre-select a set of options and then the members decide among those, or there's many options and the members decide. Thank you, Emmanuel. I'll hand over to Benoit.
A couple of things. I was thinking, instead of having a long list of exact dates, would it be easier to just say like early September, late September, early August, late August, like something like that, to like lower the number of, exact week date numbers for people? I don't know if that would help. But then the other thing, like to the previous point, is I do think it's important to get people's reasons. Yes, some of them might be purely personal and not impact others, but a lot of people's reasons are important and impact a large number. So like, obviously the fire risk is one, just the character of the event is another. Like, a lot of people like it hot, a lot of people don't like it hot. Like, that is a very like macro decision about the type of event we should have. And then the other thing that keeps being brought up is, of course, summer vacations, people with kids, and this varies completely by country. So we can't cover everything. Like, even just for Germany, summer vacation is July and August for the kids. Like there is no way to have the event both be good for summer vacation for the kids and not be in fire risk. So, but other countries have it differently. So it's like, it's important to understand these so that when the members are making their vote, they can see like, okay, these are what people want, but also why. So I can say like what I agree with as to the character of what I think the event should be as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll hand over to Tank.
Yeah, I just wanted to make just a point on governance, etc. So this is just an opinion based on smaller realities, but I reckon, especially in the case of like sort of spreading the workload and responsibilizing people in horizontal sort of decision making, especially in the context of an association, I think the best place to be eventually, like where you work out to be, is that the board sort of becomes one thing that you know, only called in for very, very important things. The idea is right now, obviously, like certain people are closer to certain issues, but in any decision and in time, you're gonna get people switching on and off sort of their effort on specific issues. So the idea of the working group is brilliant. And the idea is to get the people that are really interested and willing to do the work right now in a certain topic, for that vote to prepare a package of information like last time. That becomes very practical because otherwise all the sort of important bits of the workload will over time fall back on the same people otherwise. The fact that a group has to be responsibilized and sort of take lead of doing the research, the package, or compiling it and listening to people's opinion, whatever that group might be for any specific issue, is completely unrelated to the board in a way. But yeah, that's the only point I wanted to make. So if there's a group of people that right now care about this, they should be sort of expected to show up with that package of information, compiling it, chasing people on the Discord, and then you get to an informed vote. Because you can add another, 10 meetings in person, and they will just be messy, as everyone said, if the information is not compiled beforehand. So sort of working groups for each issue, leading that process. That's it. Sorry.
Thank you, Tank. I think Kondo had his hand raised, but I don't see him anymore. I'll just use the opportunity to reiterate something I said before. Like my hope is that we're going to get to the point eventually where the board is not doing all that much, just like high-level governance, approving the budget, maybe some kind of basically being the interface of the event, signing documents, which is apparently the president has to sign all the documents, but becomes kind of chief paperwork officers. But I also appreciate that we're not there yet. This year we had to go and we had to bootstrap an organization from scratch out of nothing, but not out of nothing. Like there was a huge, amazing community, but the organizational side was completely missing. There was no bank account. It was not registered. There was no entity that could sign permits anyway or apply for them. Like we had to go and get everything done under incredibly tight timelines. So it made sense for the board to just roll up their sleeves and get shit done. But I would hope that in a year, in 2 years, at some point in the future, that is no longer the case, and the board is basically just kind of overseeing a community that is largely doing everything that needs to be done without the board needing to be involved, and the board is kind of like a relatively light role. The question is, are we there yet? Probably not, well, we're definitely not there yet completely. Are we there enough that the community can take this vote? Because part of the question is, or maybe you don't know, but part of the question is yes, okay, the Asociados, I 100% believe should be in charge of this at some point. Some people have expressed to me the doubt that, well, maybe the Asociados aren't quite ready for this, they don't fully understand. And there is an education thing at the very least there, because a lot of people don't know they can apply to be an Asociado. Just today, actually, this is worth reiterating, just today I was talking to somebody who said they had a friend who was heavily involved in organizing a related event in the area, was a lead for many years, was a core contributor, and was very sad that because they weren't at elsewhere, they couldn't be an Asociado. that is not true. The criteria say if you've been a lead in a related event, in an unrelated event in the area, you can apply to be an Asociado, and you do qualify to be an Asociado. So if that's your case, or if you know somebody who's in that case, please get them to apply. They can be an Asociado. We believe that people who have been leads who have contributed a lot to this community, like those are the people we want to have as Asociados, determining the direction of this community. But if that bit of education isn't there yet, like, you know, there's a kind of engagement with the community, education, learning that they really understand that they do have this power, and that is a kind of journey. And I'm an impatient person, so I could try to like go as quickly as possible on this journey, but I also wanted to really listen to people because I heard some feedback that maybe I'm going a bit too fast with this, to hear what people want. And I mean, I'm hearing that probably the middle option of the board select some dates and the Asociados vote on them might be a good one. Yeah, does anybody want to add something to this?
I'll say
yeah,
that
Renee,
sure my Barrio leads applied. So they hadn't applied and I pushed them in and they applied. So now they're in.
Thank you. Very helpful, because yeah, if they don't apply, they can't vote. And then what I hope, and what we're hoping also with the working groups, is that, like, you know, you can't know everything that happens in a community the size of this community, and there's going to be some stuff that happens and you find out about it later, but and maybe you disagree with the outcome. But so long as it was transparent and you could have participated, you could have added your voice, you could have influenced the decision, you just didn't get around to it because you were too busy and you didn't want to join Discord and whatever, you have your reasons, then you can still stand behind the results and say, I could have participated in this, I didn't, whatever. Okay, fine, I'll get behind the decision. What I find really disempowering is when there's a decision that happens and I couldn't have participated in it because I didn't know it was happening. The working group was not visible. The decision happened without any emails or any communications, and it was just made. Then I don't feel like, you know, in support of that decision, even if I agree with it. So I'm hoping the transparency of the working groups can help a lot with that. Oliver, would you prefer to be called Olivier? Do you prefer to be called Anchor or Olivier?
I don't mind. You decide.
Okay.
Like the
Right.
French version, if you can articulate one way or the other.
Olivier, then.
So I'm not sure I understand why we want the board to pre-select some date before the final vote. Can you clarify that?
Yeah. So the there's two angles two justifications I can see for that. One is sort of consideration for the people doing the voting, to not drown them with a vote like the name vote, which we all remember in our deepest nightmares, where we had to rank 26 name options, some of which were very similar to each other, and then re-rank them in the opposite direction. Like, I don't know, I still have like flashbacks of this. So one of them is like, you know, it's nicer to have a list of, say, 5, maybe 10 options, rather than like, you know, 30 options that you then need to rank like from 1 to 30. That seems like a bit intense. And the other one, just being perfectly honest, is I think fear-based, of being afraid that the community might pick a date that's really not the right date. I don't subscribe to that one, but you know, I can see why some people might be like, well, you know, I mean, you know, there is definitely a history in this continent, at least, of people making choices through the pseudo-democratic means in a certain country on an island that maybe weren't fully considered. Personally, as I said, I come from Switzerland. We vote on like 30 things a year, and you know, the sky hasn't fallen yet. So I think people can be trusted to make votes, even very large numbers of people, even millions of people, as long as you give them good information. And I actually have this letter from Switzerland, is like quite thick. There's a booklet in there that informs me of what I'm going to vote on, and I'll be able to leaf through it and make an informed choice, even though I'm not following Swiss politics. And I think we can reach that level of information, especially with AI. I'll hand over to Condor. I hope that answers your question, Olivier.
Yeah, to follow on from that, I sort of assume the reason why someone might want the vote to eliminate options is because I guess the whole vote is going to boil down to two things, two kind of things that people are going to vote on. One is like you're looking at higher level things where you're thinking of the big picture, what's best for the event overall, which is thinking like sustainable, what dates are going to make people go. And what I was having a slight rant about on Discord was I think actually the date we choose may have a massive difference to growth going forward. And that's kind of like on one level, people may vote on these kind of like higher, more philosophical, kind of more aspirational things where they're thinking the big picture, not themselves. But then, and so that's maybe why you assume that the board might take out some options, because they're probably the ones who at least have a very good idea of what do we need to do to survive or to grow as a community. Whereas a lot of the Asociados, it's going to be a bit more filtered down. Like some of us are going to be active on Discord in this kind of meeting. We're going to know a lot of the more complex pictures, whereas some people are just going to think like, oh, well, what suits me and perhaps like my camp, like what can we go to? What works in terms of my personal situation. So it would be kind of like a two-step thing, but I think that's maybe why people would assume the board would do something like that.
Thank you. Handing over to Ellen.
Yeah, I'm wondering, have we decided whether no change is an option?
So it depends. I mean, I think if we take the option that the vote pre-selects the options, then no change would not be an option. If we take the broader set of choices, then it would, of course, be an option. The question is, do we want to have in the sets of choice? I mean, it is certainly part of the survey, to correct Olivier there. It is part of the survey. We are going to try and see where people want, like we're going to include it in the survey, like the no change. But it is like it is not like the board would not recommend this. You would get like at least 6 board members, I think, voting against it. Maybe unanimous vote against it, because like it just feels very risky to stay. Like again, we should have been cancelled 3 times this year.
Yes, I did see the giant plume of smoke and the ashes raining down on us. Yes.
Like by law, we should have been cancelled. And then practically, we literally during build had a fire heading towards us and had ash falling on the site during the build. I don't know if everybody knows that, but like, there was literally ash falling on us. Now, it worked out that fire didn't come close enough to force us to evacuate, but there was literally a fire coming towards us and dropping ash on the site. So, it was a fiery summer. So yes, in the survey, the date will still be there. If we do the restricted date sets, then it wouldn't be there in the final vote. If we do the expanded date set where everything is available, then it would still be there in the final vote. Personally, I would strongly advise us not to vote to keep the event on the same date.
Agreed.
But there's also, but even if we do ranked voting, there's also the option, as far as I understand how the ranked voting algorithm works, there's also the option that no option gets more than 50% of the vote at any rank, in which case that's a null vote where all options have been rejected. So in a way, there's always that option by just saying, I reject all the options. I hope that answers your question. And handing over to Anna.
Yeah, just thinking about there's this sense of like, yeah, what do we want? And then there's also what we can get a permit for, because the timeline around like the environmental agencies, I don't know the names for the
Inaga.
Inaga, yeah, the kind of authorities on there. So there's just to like factor into the discussion we're having now that there's a portion of this that is us choosing our preferred dates, but then there will be a portion of like being able to get a permit. I mean, it seems yeah, because there's a few factors into that as well, which could then say that the dates that have been preferred, maybe it's going to be number 203 instead of 201 or something, because actually we couldn't get a permit for that for some reason. Yeah, just bringing that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Like, there's so many things. I forgot that particular one. So to clarify for people who don't know, INAGA is an environmental agency. They look at things like bird nesting schedules and things like that. And they do an environmental assessment and decide whether it's a good idea to have a bunch of hippies with very, very loud speakers in the area, like at that time of the year. There are birds nesting about 800 meters away from our current site. There are birds nesting also fairly close to the new site. I believe we've applied to find out if we can use a variety, like a whole variety of dates for both sites for next year. But it's the middle of the summer in Spain. INAGA at best takes 1 to 3 months to respond. You can find on the event dates site, on the event dates page on Nobodies.team, there's a subpage for the bird nesting schedules. You can find all the information we've been able to gather, but we don't know what INAGA will decide. We're trying to get a hold of whatever document authorized another event in the region some time ago, because whatever reasoning they used to authorize that could be useful to try and guess what they might authorize next time. But there is the possibility that, you know, the number one vote is last week of May, let's say, and INAGA says no, actually that's the most critical period for birds to like make their nests and stuff. You can't do an event at that date. The advantage of doing the vote anyway before that is that as long as it's not all the dates that we suggested that get ruled out by INAGA, then as soon as the INAGA report comes in, we've got the top ranked date of the remaining dates. And we want to know, as I think we'll believe, a lot of people on the board and off the board believe that it would be really helpful to know as soon as possible what the dates are going to be next year, because a lot of us plan our year around those dates. A lot of suppliers need to be contacted and like plans need to be made. Other burns might adjust their dates based on what dates we select. There's a lot of impact of this date, and knowing it as early as possible makes a big difference to a lot of people. So we're trying to get that information as quickly as possible. But the INAGA report is definitely out of our hands. So thanks for reminding us of that. Anything else, Hannah?
No, yeah, just to clarify. So it could be, it makes sense to me that we wouldn't wait for a report and then organize a vote, because a vote takes time, but then we have the community's preference, but then we get the possibility, literally, whether we can get a permit to do it then. So then a decision can get made quite quickly then and announced. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Anyone else? Maybe we've talked enough about bird nesting schedules and dates. In case you have further thoughts about this later, there is already a channel on the Discord called Event Dates, and it's very mysterious, which has a thread inside where we're talking about the poll and the survey and so on. There will be a work group once we have the working group functionality set up. And there is, again, on the, let me just show you so it's visible to everybody, but if I just share my screen, this entire screen here. If you go, you can see my screen, yeah? Yeah. If you go here under event, you go to 2027 dates. There's a lot of information here about the dates. We're putting together this these tables. There's also, like, you know, you can see that the fire risk. So these are the actual alerts, and we checked the alert criteria have not changed year on year. So all that's happened is that the alerts have spread around and gotten earlier, and there's more and more red and yellow. There's not been any green this year, actually. And you can also see, yeah, like this charted in various different ways. You can see also the weather here, like what is the weather like across the range of plausible dates and the amount of rain that there is. And we're still working on contacting other burns and finding out the impact. And also, finally, the bird nesting, which here there's a page where you can find out more than you ever wanted to know about bird nesting schedules in Monegros and nearby. which still doesn't tell us exactly when we can actually have an event, unfortunately. It just tells us that there's actually the conclusion from looking at the information that is available is that we should not be allowed to run an event in July. So it's not the most useful. So hence why I'm very curious if we can get the reports that allowed an event in July before to find out why they allowed an event in July, even though there are birds, young birds in the area. Yeah, thank you, Olivier. And if you want to, and I need to log in, log out. Yeah, so if you want to participate, just jump into the event dates channel, or it will be in a working group soon. Ping me, ping Olivier, ping Celine, ping Peter K. We're all really like caring about providing enough information there. I'm really hoping to be able to, we want to send both the survey, like the human survey and the Google Form survey at the same time to avoid drowning people in too many waves of polls and surveys and stuff, because we want to avoid the situation where an associado who's quite distracted, like maybe a barrio lead who's had a lot of partying this year and a lot more partying, is going to Burning Man and stuff, thinks they've voted, but they haven't voted because they just voted on a survey rather than on the actual vote. So we thought, let's just have one round with the humans and Google Docs, Google Forms, and then the next round is an associado vote, whatever that ends up being. So that's the thinking. I'm really hoping that can get that out by the end of the weekend. It depends on me being able to deploy stuff to humans, which I'm very, very close with Peter's help. So, okay, it's 9:05. It's been just over an hour. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining and for offering your opinion. It's super helpful to get to hear from people rather than trying to guess whether, how you want to be asked. It's really nice to be told by the members, by the dedicated members who are logging in mid-August to talk about event dates for next year. So thank you so much. Have a lovely... Oh, Joe, you want to say something before we finish?
Yeah, I literally got informed about this meeting when you posted it, like the minute it was starting. I don't know if we know when the next meetings are going to happen, if we could know that in advance, maybe if it's going to be every other Thursday or something like that, it would help to plan.
Joao, I do believe that I added you to the community calls group on Discord as because I wanted help in because I'm terrible with logistics and managing these kind of things. There's a few people there. Some of them are taking a much needed break, but if you're feeling the tension by this, please help clarify ahead of time, and so that we because I tend to get really busy with a bunch of stuff, and then I remember on Wednesday, shit, I have a meeting, we need to talk about the community call, and then on Thursday I'm really busy, and then finally I make an announcement and stuff. I'm not the best person for this stuff, but maybe you are. And if it's not Jiao, and if somebody else on this call is like, yeah, actually that's me, I'm super organized, I want to sort that shit out, please let me know.
Yeah, well, it's good that you also made a call out for other people, because I am a person that likes pointing out problems and things, and when I see the solution that I can help, I will promptly offer to help. But again, if I'm not proposing the calls or I'm not involved in this, again, I will try to help though. But I do think that, yeah, advertising this in advance, or maybe coming up with a schedule every other Thursday or whatever, would be helpful for everyone.
Yeah, I've just texted you are in the group, so thanks for your help. Olivier?
If the point of this is just creating an event on Discord, a recurring event, I don't mind.
No, it's more actually making sure that the recurring event is cancelled if the call is not happening, making sure that there's an agenda published as early as possible, so that people can choose whether they want to attend or not, whether it's interesting and so on. There's a bit of pre-management rather than sort of cobbling something together on the day, based on the conversation you've been having all week. This could be done ahead of time. It's just not something I'm very good at. And luckily there's a lot of other people that
and we speak about and we speak about community calls channel. Is that correct, or is there another group for
that? Sorry, I couldn't understand this. It keeps cutting off.
I was saying, speak about it. Community call channel.
I still can't hear anything. Can you type it? It keeps cutting out while you're speaking. Thanks, Ellen. Okay, you'll type it on Discord. Yeah, cool. We'll sync up on Discord. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely Thursday. and check your email by the end of the weekend. Hopefully you'll get an email with a survey and forward it to all your friends so they can all vote on the date for next year's event. All right, cool. Take care. Bye, everyone.